We're going to begin, as always, with some Museum of Everything pub trivia. So, Josh, what's your first question to me?
What phrase did Homer use to describe the color of the Aegean in the Iliad and the Odyssey?
I believe he called it the wine-dark sea.
That is correct. Good work.
All right, so that's one to me. Do you want to gloss that at all?
Well, there is some debate as to when ancient societies began having separate words for blue. Virtually every language had a word for every other color before it finally got the word blue. And there's some debate as to whether or not Homeric-era Greece had a word for blue, but in fact, I think this is rather silly, and Homer was just being poetic, as he was in
It's
so
an
many
extremely
others.
evocative description, isn't it? The wine-dark sea. You can really picture that.
Yeah, and when he talks about rosy-fingered dawn, it's not like, oh, he didn't have a word for orange, the rising sun, or something like that.
Absolutely.
Or pink. It's Homer was a very good poet, and there's a reason he's lasted so long. So I think the idea that he called the ocean wine dark because he didn't have a word for blue is just absurd.
All right, well, that's one question to me. My first question to you is, name every man to have walked on the moon.
Okay, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Pete Conrad, Al Bean, Al Shepard, Edgar Mitchell, Dave Scott, Jim Irwin, John Young, Charlie Duke, Gene Cernan, and Harrison Jack Schmidt.
That is correct, and I didn't say that you had to list them in order, but you did. So you probably could get
that's
bonus
how I
points
had
for
them in
that.
my mind. You know,
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Who's going to be the
question.
next man to walk on the moon?
When will we go back, and who will that be?
It's presumably going to be in the relatively near future, one would hope.
I hope it's me. I'm available.
You are available. You volunteered. I wouldn't do anything less than. Well, actually, no. I would go to the moon. I would 100% go to the moon if anyone offered me the chance to do that. We're here, just so you know. All right. So that's one for each of us. What's your second question to me?
Where is Old Zealand? That is as opposed to New Zealand.
Yeah. Well, if New Zealand was discovered by someone English, then it must be in England. But that, wait, no, but Zealand doesn't sound like a very English name.
Nor were New Zealand and Australia discovered by an Englishman. You know that Australia was...
It was discovered by Abel Tasman. That was Tasmania.
He discovered Tasmania, and he discovered New Zealand. I think he missed Australia famously.
Was Abel Tasman not English? I always assumed that he was.
No, I don't think so. What did Australia used to be called?
I didn't know it used to be called anything.
Well, I can't tell you. It'll give you the answer to the question.
I don't know. Holland.
Can't you deduce? Yeah, Holland is correct. It used to be called New Holland, and Old Zealand. I mean, Zealand is still a province in the Netherlands. It's the most southwesterly province.
I didn't know that, but Zealand does sound like a Dutch name, so there you are. All right.
I'll give that to you.
My second question to you is, where is the poet W.B. Yeats buried? You can name either the nearby mountain or the churchyard in which he is entombed.
A nearby mountain.
Yes.
Is it Montmartre? I mean, that's the only mountain I can think of he might be buried
Yeats, the great Irish poet, is buried in Ireland, and I'm not telling you the answer. I'm just telling you what country he's in. But he tells you in one of his... Yes, there are. He tells you in one of his last poems where he wants to be buried, and he even gives the epitaph that he wishes to have carved on his tombstone in a great poem, whose name I cannot give you because it would also give away the answer to this question.
I mean, is it Tintern Abbey?
No, if you don't know the poem, you're just not going to get it. But I'm rather shocked, I have to say.
All right, well, tell me.
The name of the poem is Ben Bulben. And under Bear Ben Bulben's head in Drumcliff churchyard, Yeats is laid. An ancestor was rector there long years ago. A church stands near. By the road an ancient cross, no marble, no conventional phrase. On limestone quarried near the spot by his command these words are cut. Cast a cold eye on life, on death. Horsemen pass by. That is the end of the poem Under Bear Ben Bulben, or Under Ben Bulben, and that is exactly where he's buried. He actually died, I believe, in France, but he wanted to be disinterred and reinterred exactly where he had described, and so subsequently he was. A year later, they dug him up, they moved him to Drumcliff Churchyard, and gave him a tombstone exactly as he had described in the poem. It's one of my favorite few lines of poetry in the English language for its extraordinarily rhythmic nature. It's just a wonderful, it really rolls off the tongue, which is why I still know it, but I thought that you would have encountered this poem, though. I'm pretty sure that Dad made us both memorize it.
Nope.
Well, in any event.
Just you, I guess.
I'm sorry you missed that, so that's, I'm ahead 2-1 now. So, do you want to give me another question here?
Yep. So, during the Second World War, an unclassed flat-bottomed schooner was used to deliver coast watchers to islands in the New Hebrides to track the movement of the Japanese fleet. What was its name? It was technically an army ship, despite being a ship.
Is this referenced in Father Goose?
No.
It sounds like it.
You're thinking along the right lines.
Wait.
But not
Wait. This would be... is it the Echo?
Yes, it is. Very good. The USS Echo.
This story, I guess so. This story is told in the wackiest ship in the Army,
yes,
which is...
I had no idea that was a true story, and I was so excited when I discovered it last night that I almost called you at like 4 a.m. to tell you. And I was like, no, I'll save this for trivia. Yeah, and a lot more of the story is true than you'd think. The captain, Jack Lemmon plays Captain Rick Crandall in the movie. I think his real name was Rip something or other. Right, I have it written down somewhere. Rip Riddle, Meredith Rip Riddle was his real name, and they did in fact, dress up as Pacific Islanders and sail out in the open so that the Japanese would just think they were fishermen, and successfully snuck in coast watchers to lots. They did it more than 50 times, not the one time portrayed in the movie.
Fascinating, and I have to say, it's a really good film. It's one that we always enjoyed, and it's an unusual role for Jack Lemmon because Jack Lemmon is usually. He's not always the manliest of characters, but he really is in this film, and he pulls it off very well. Great performance.
Originally, apparently, I mean, if you can go by the IMDb page, he was going to play the young ensign role,
which was played by Ricky Nelson.
Right, yeah, and he was too old to be an ensign. I mean, he had actually been an ensign in the Navy during the Second World War, but he wasn't Ensign Pulver anymore. He was too old for that, so they decided to give him the senior officer role, and he plays it really well. I mean, it's one of my favorite Jack Lemmon performances.
Definitely, and even though I haven't seen it in a while, it's really a good film. So there's some films where we seem to have seen them many more times than we should have, given how much we like them or dislike them. And I think that bringing up Baby falls into that category of films we overwatched. This might be a film that we've underwatched because it's a really good movie, one I always enjoy.
It's available on YouTube in its entirety.
Well, I might watch it tonight then. I think, all right, so at this point I'm ahead 3 questions and you have 1. So even if you answer the last question correctly, you can't possibly win. However, I am going to propose a modification because last time I gave you an incorrect answer, which you scored as correct, because it turns out that Cary Grant is not in Dinner at 8. Now, I'm gobsmacked by this. For some reason, I had pictured him...
That explains why I wasn't on my list.
I had pictured him on the box, and yet it turns out I was wrong. So I will say, even though I'm a question ahead here, if you can answer this question correctly, we should go on to tiebreakers, I guess. I think that the point is, I think you get a bonus question from that.
So we're subtracting a point retroactively from you.
Yeah. So let's say we're going to be tied here and go into my last question, which is, who were the 4 main cast members in The Honeymooners?
Jackie Gleason, Art Carney, Joyce Randolph, and Audrey Meadows.
Very good. Very good. The Honeymooners was America's first favorite TV show, I think. Yeah. And it preempts. Unless you count a variety show,
It was the first sitcom.
Yes, and
The first
but it comes
nationally
considerably
popular
before
sitcom, I think.
the Dick Van Dyke Show or I Love Lucy. Is the previous decade, end of the previous decade, and it created the idea of the sitcom really, and also the idea of a TV show focusing on a completely ordinary person as opposed to someone who was fancy higher up in society. Ralph Crandon, played by Jackie Gleason, is a bus driver. There's a statue of him in character outside the Port Authority bus terminal in New York City.
Is there?
Yes, there is.
I
Big
never
bronze
noticed
statue.
that.
It's really nice, actually.
It's been a while since I've been to the Port Authority.
The one and only good thing about the Port Authority is the statue of Jackie Gleason as Ralph Cramden.
It is a pretty hateful, awful place. Whenever I've taken buses from there, it's been
yeah.
a nightmare.
Anyone
who's lived in New York knows that, though.
Time for tiebreakers then. Do you want to give me a tie-breaking question? Do you have one?
Yep, I do. What national ethnic group did Beowulf belong to?
Well, I assume if you're asking me this, it's not an obvious thing like the Saxons, but no, they wouldn't have been there anyway. All right, I can ask you some surrounding questions, presumably.
Yeah.
What part of England is Beowulf from?
He's not from any part of England.
Okay.
The story, most of the story takes place in Denmark. That is, the Hrothgar is a king of the Danes. Beowulf comes from what is now part of Sweden. But it says repeatedly that he is from a certain group of who are now Swedes.
So you don't mean where the actual poem was from, but you just mean
the man Beowulf.
The man Beowulf.
I see what the confusion is. Yeah, it's
That is, your question is concerning a character rather than the actual
right. The poem was probably written in southern England. Maybe, but concerned.
But that's not what you're asking here. You're asking where the character Beowulf
the character
is from.
Beowulf comes from where?
I know, the Spear Danes are discussed in the first line of the poem, but he wasn't Danish.
Yeah, I didn't ask this initially because I thought it was too easy. Because you know Beowulf very well.
Yes, but I don't know where he's from. So I have to surrender this one.
He was Geatish. He was a Geat.
Where's that introduced? It's probably 150 lines in or something.
Well, I don't have a copy of the poem. Modern Gotland in Sweden.
It begins, Wat win Gardena njer dium, Theod Kunninga thrum frunan hutha athalingas ellen fremedon, oft schuld shething, Shathanithratum, Moinu, Maithum, Meotha Sela, Ofter, Aesod, Eorlis, Sithan Ersworth, Fayshift Funden, Hades Strothir Bard, Wexum, Welcome, Werth, Munden Thach, Otha, Time, Welch, Farem, Satendra, Ofa, Ronan Rada, Iron Shoulder, Gombenilden. That was good cunning. But that's only the first, 10 lines or so. But I don't believe there's any mention of Beowulf until considerably later. In any event, I get that one wrong, so if you answer the next question correctly, you will win. So shall I just lay this on you then?
Yeah.
All right. Name 5 types of whales.
Okay, I can do that. Let's see. Humpbacks, sperm whales, right whales, bowhead whales, blue whales. I could go on.
You could go. All right, fine. I should have given you 10 types, but I don't know. I didn't know this was going to be a tiebreaker question. In any event, well done. You have won this round of Museum of Everything Pub Trivia. Mazel tov.